Cisco Certified Network Associate Day 8. I'm Imran Rafai, your trainer for this entire series. Today we are going to talk about switching. So welcome to the switching world. Without wasting much time, let's get straight into today's class. Let's assume you're in office and you're the network administrator of this brand new company. And your manager comes to you with a brand new switch, hands it over to you and asks you to configure. Now you have a look, you say a new switch, right? Is this the switch? No, we are talking about network, so we're talking about this switch, right? So he hands you over a Cisco switch, a brand new Cisco switch, and Cisco switch, like you can see, has many interfaces. So you get it in different configurations: 8-port switches, 16-port switches, 24-port switches, right? So this is a 48-port switch. Now you can see there's a 48-port switch by the number of ports that you have in the front. So this is the front of the switch. So you have 12 ports here, 12 ports here, 12 ports here, and 12 ports here. So this is totally a 48-port switch. At the back of this switch, like we saw in one of our previous videos, we have different connections. So one of those connections there is a console port, right? So like we know, the console port is used to get access to out-of-band access. And if you remember, out-of-band access is the connection where you can see the boot up of the device, right? So it's like having your friend, like we discussed. If you might have had occasions where you want to help your colleague and you make use of remote desktop. So you're using remote desktop, you connect to your colleague, you make changes, and the minute you want your colleague to restart the device, restart their computer, you lose access, right? Now that is the problem if you don't have access, out-of-band access to that device. Now if you have out-of-band access to this device, then even if the device is booting, you still have access and you can see everything that's happening. You can see the iOS being uncompressed and different processes that is taking place on the device. You can see all of that, right? So that is how you get out-of-band access. Another way of getting access to this device is by connecting to any of these ports. Now if you have configured the management IP on this device, like we will be seeing in this video, you can get access through telnet, right? But the problem with telnet is the minute this device goes off, you will lose access to telnet, right? So let's see how we can do the initial configuration of a brand new switch. Right, so since this is the first time we are actually getting into device level configurations, I need to set few ground rules. For this video series, for the most part of this video series, I would be making use of GNS3. Now what is GNS3? For people who don't know what GNS3 is an emulator that lets you emulate Cisco iOS, right? So what's the advantage? In many cases, in many cases I might need more than one device to do something. You know, for instance, if I'm doing routing, I might need maybe about 4 devices. Now instead of me buying 4 physical devices, I can make use of my operating system from one of my devices. I can connect it onto GNS3 and I can emulate that iOS onto multiple instances of that same operating system, right? So I don't need to physically have 5 routers. I can have one router, I can use that operating system, I can put it on my computer, I will put it onto the emulator, I will have 5 instances of that. So you will see that in our latest in later videos of this series. But for today, now the problem with GNS3 is you cannot emulate a switch, because switch has hardware chips like the ASIC, the application specific integrated circuit, which makes the switch a switch, right? So you cannot emulate that hardware feature. So GNS3 does a good job with switch, but there are some features in the switch that we cannot really use. So what I'm going to do is, for this video and some of the videos, I would make use of another software created by Cisco called the Cisco Packet Tracer. Now please don't ask me how you can get access to Cisco Packet Tracers. You can Google. You need to be part of a network academy to get access to Cisco Packet Tracer. So if you have access to Cisco Packet Tracer, you can follow me. If you have access to a physical device, you can still follow me. Or if you think you want to do it on a GNS3, you can still follow me, because you can, whatever we're going to do in most part of this ICND, you can make use of anything. You can make use of GNS3, where you have a router operating system and put a switch module onto that. You can make use of it, absolutely no problem, it will work. You can make use of GNS3, like I said, or you can make use of physical device, absolutely it will work. Or you can make use of packet tracer, that will also work. So it is up to you to decide what you want to do. But for my video, for this video, I'm going to use packet tracer. So I will have a couple of videos, one exclusively for packet tracer and one exclusively for GNS3, of how to make use of these two brilliant softwares, GNS3 and packet tracer. I will be recording and uploading it very soon. But for now, we will make use of packet tracer, right? So this is how packet tracer looks, right? So this is a Cisco application. I have access to this, but if you have access to Network Academy, you will get access to this. But if not, like I said, you can use anything, right? So what I will do is I will take a switch, because we're talking about switch today. So I will take a switch, I will put the switch onto the workspace here, right? So if I double click on this, it will open a switch for me. And if I go to the command line interface, I can see the switch is booting up. Now this is how a regular switch looks. Now if you take a physical device and you plug it in and you switch it on, this is how the operating system boots. So you can see the flash, the operating system is getting uncompressed. Then you will see some software restrictions and software license agreement, copyright information, all those things that is displayed here. Then they will display the platform that it is running on, and all the hardware features are listed here, and software versions and things like that get displayed here. Then you would go into the user prompt. Now if you remember from our previous video, if you have this symbol, it is the user prompt, right? Now if you remember from our previous video, if you have this prompt, this is the user prompt. Now this is the lowest prompt that you can get access on any Cisco device. And another thing is, if you're using packet tracer, this access, like I said, is OOB access, where you can actually see the device booting up. So if you're seeing, this is what it is doing, it's simulating an access that you're getting from your console port. So this for all practical purpose, it is as if I've connected my computer through the console port to this switch, right? So this is the user exec mode. So how do you go from user exec mode to the privilege exec mode? Yes, by typing enable, E-N-A-B-L-E, hit enter. You could also make use of shortcuts, so you can type EN, and that will also take, like I said, you can type as little alphabets. So for enable, if you type EN, it knows. If you type E, it may not accept, because there are 3 words with the letter E. Now if I type EN, then it can clearly distinguish that enable is the only word that you can get by typing EN, right? So you can type EN and hit enter. It'll take you to the privilege exec mode. Now you're in privilege exec mode. Now privilege exec mode, you have very little limited functions that you can do. Now these things that we want to do, we want to change host names, logon banner, console passwords, telnet password, enable password, management IP, default gateway, shutdown, negating command, and saving configurations, right? These are the 10 basic commands that you need to do for initial configuration of your device, right? So most of the things, right, these are configuration that we need to do, and all the configurations we do from the global configuration mode. So configuration that's going to apply to the device per se will go in the global configuration mode. So first thing is the host name. Now host name is a change that is applicable to the whole device, so it has to be made from the global configuration mode. So we go into configuration mode by typing configure terminal. You could, like I said, you could make use of shortcut CONFT, which is config terminals. So I would go here. If I want to change the host name, I type host name, and then let's say I put networking, right? So if you can see, my host name got changed to networking, right? So now onwards, let's assume you are on a now tomorrow if you were to put this switch onto the network and there are multiple devices on the network, this is how you would identify which switch we're talking about. So the best practice of how to give a good name for your host name is to give a logical name. So if this switch is going to sit in let's say the administrator room, then you can say admin floor 1. You could just give a logical name. So you can say floor 1 room 2, right? So if you give a logical name, it becomes very easy for you to identify which switch you're connecting. So because as your network tends to become bigger and bigger, it becomes more confusing if you don't give logical names, right? So that is how you give a host name. Now next is we talk about the banner. Now what is a banner? You can set up a banner that is the first thing that anybody logging into this device sees, right? So how do you set that? You set it by the command banner, banner, and you can put question mark. It'll tell MOTD. MOTD is message of the day. It's short form for message of the day, MOTD. And if I put question mark, it'll tell C banner text C, where C is the delimiting character. Now that's very confusing. What it is trying to say is you just start with any character. It could be anything, right? So we'll start with ampersand. I hit enter. It tells me that okay, now I can enter the text, whatever text, this part, the banner text, and I have to enter with the same character that I started with, right? So I started with ampersand, so I have to end my message with ampersand, right? So I will create this message. So I'll put all stars. I will say the most dangerous switch, do not log in, right? I think that's good enough. Anybody will get scared. Now that is my banner message of the day. Now how do I check this? So I'll exit. I'll hit Control Z. When I do Control Z, it takes me back to privilege exec mode. I can hit exit from here, right? It'll take me out. If I hit enter, it gets me back on, and you can see that my message is here. So this is the first message that anybody would see if they log in. So this is called the log on banner, right? You can get very creative and you can type anything you want, but as an advice, I would suggest I have seen some people who have put like text start here. They have just gone on. If you have seen what text start is, you can put like a lot of characters and make a face of somebody. You can do that. There's nothing that is stopping you from doing that. But just remember that you have to put these. The more number of characters that you're going to put in this, it has to save on the RAM. It has to save that file, the running configuration file, in the memory of your device. Now the more characters in that file, the more the size of the the startup configuration, and it is just going to take more time and just going to make it slow. So best advice is keep it minimal, keep the message crisp and clear, right? So that's an advice that I would like to give. All right, so let's go back. Right, next we'll look at console password. Now what's console password? Now console password is the password that is there to prevent people from logging in. Now let's assume that you leave your device open. Now I am a hacker. Let's assume I'm a hacker. I get my computer, my laptop, I get a console cable, I plug it onto the switch, I plug it to my computer, I take a terminal, I go into the switch, I change the password, right? Or I do some mischievous thing on there. If you put a password on the console port, I will not be able to log in. I will only be able to log in with that password, right? So you don't want somebody to just log in to the console and change things, right? So what we'll do is, so first let's look at the running configuration, right? Since I am in the config mode, what I can do is I can type the word do, and I can say show run, because the show run command is actually a privilege exec mode command. So from the from the global configuration mode, if I want to run a privilege exec mode command, I just use the word do, right? So let me see what is there, right? So if I see into line console, so I can see line console, there is nothing, right? So this says this is the entire section, right? And this is another section. This is another section, right? So in the line console section, there is nothing there. So that means that is the reason if I plug in, it is giving me direct access. Now that is the very reason. Okay, another way to end exit out is typing end. If you type end, it takes you back to the privilege exit mode. From here you can type exit, right? So you exit. Now if I hit enter, it is taking me directly to this prompt, or the user exit mode prompt, is because there is no password. If there was a password, it would have asked me the password here before it took me to this banner mode, right? So we'll have a look. So hit enter, conf t, right? Then we'll go into line console 0, right? There is only one console, so that is why we do console 0, because everything in Cisco device, it starts with 0. So you start with the first is always 0 and then it goes. So we have only one console, so it is line console, right? Here we say password Cisco, right? Now we have set a password, but we have let's try. We have set a password. Now let's try again. Exit. Right? Again, it is not asking for a password. Why? It is not asking for a password because we have not told them. We have set a password, but we have not told we have not told the line to check for password if there is traffic coming in. So let's go there. Let's see what we need to do. So we go into line console 0 again. Then we type the word login. Now what does login mean? It means you need to check for a password. So this is telling that login is required. You can't just let somebody without checking for login credentials, right? Now let's try. Let's go out again, right? Now when I hit enter, you see what happened? You put the banner. After the banner, sorry, I think I told you before the banner, my mistake, I apologize. After the banner, it asks for a password, right? So if I put the same password, it lets me go in. Right? So now what you've effectively done is effectively prevented anybody from taking access to your device without your authorization. Right? Now only people with this password can log in. Right? Now that is now this is a problem. Because what it does is, if you type something that is not understood, it thinks it's a domain name, so it actually tries to search for a domain server name. So just try to resolve it to an IP address. So could this happen? Maybe I will show how to disable this, right? We'll have to just wait until this times out, or we can do Control Shift and 6. It will abort it. Control Shift and 6. Now this will also work. Sometimes it works on physical devices, right? Right. So what we can do is we can go in and we'll disable the domain lookup. So it will be no IP domain lookup. So henceforth we will not have that problem. So if we go out and we do Cisco, we do the same mistake, it will just say unknown command. It will not go and search for a domain, right? So that's very efficient. This is some of those things that you would need to do on a new device, right? Next we'll look at telnet password, right? So telnet password, we go in, configure terminal, right? So like we saw for console, it is line console 0, right? For telnet, it is line VTY. VTY is what? It's virtual line. Telnet is a virtual line. There's no physical line for telnet. Telnet is a virtual line. So line VTY. Now if you do question, it says 0. First line is 0. And the last line it says 16. So 15. So that means you can do line from 0 to 15, which is nothing but 16 virtual lines that can be accessible on this device. That means if the first, let's say many devices are connected, right? You're connected on the network. The first time somebody tries to telnet into this device, it will take the line 0. The second time another person tries to telnet into the device, it will take line 1. Then it will take line 2, line 3. So like that, 16 people can at the same time telnet into this device. 17th person tries telnetting in, it will say too many people, so it will not let the 17th person come. Only 16 people can come, right? So we are taking all those lines. So we're telling that whatever we're going to make changes now, it's applicable to all the 16 virtual lines that come in, right? So we say passwords. It's the same concept like what we did for line console. So we say password, let's say telnet, just to differentiate this. Say it's a password telnet. And again we say the same thing, we say login. That means we don't want people to just log in and come in without the password, right? So we're telling please check for login and only then let them come in, right? At the moment we can't make use of telnet. I will once we reach to management IP, like we see here, I will show you how to do telnet. So hold on telnet for a minute. The next thing is, okay, the next we'll go into management IP. So straight we'll go into management IP because we need to because we can check telnet. So how do we set management IP? We set management IP because you need to understand switch works on layer 2, right? So there's no IP address for switches. So all these 24 ports on the switch, you cannot give an IP address on those switch because this is layer 2. So we need to give an IP address to the switch if we want to access this switch from another device, right? We need to give one IP address on the switch, and that IP address is going to be the management IP. So how do we do that? We need to do, so if you go to show IP interface brief, now this is one of my favorite command. What it does is it shows all the interfaces on this device. So I can see that I have 24 fast Ethernet ports, right? And I have 2 gigabit Ethernet ports, and then I have one VLAN interface, right? VLAN is a very big concept. We will be getting into VLAN concepts later in the series, but for now just know that there is every switch comes with one virtual interface called the VLAN interface. Now this is the interface that is used to manage this switch, right? So what we'll do is we will go into that interface. So it will be interface VLAN 1, right? We are in the interface. So you can see that our prompt has changed to IF, which says we are in VLAN interface now. So we'll go here and we'll give an IP address. Let's say IP address 10.1.1.1 255.255.255.0, right? So we're given an IP address, and we can see that this interface is administratively down, right? Whenever you see administratively down, that means there is a command on that interface which is called shutdown, right? This is how you shut a port. So this port is shut down, right? This is how you shut down a port. So you can do this on a physical port also. You can go into fast Ethernet 0/23, for instance. So it will be interface fast Ethernet 0/24, and you say shutdown. This port also will become administratively down, which means that port is shut. So nobody can, even if they plug into that port, it will not work, right? Now how do we open that port? So this is how you shut down. So if you want, how do we open anything? I mean, how do you open that port? We use by using the negate command. That means we say no shutdown, right? Brilliant. So you can see that this has changed up. The interface VLAN 1 has changed to state up, and that is how you negate any command on a Cisco iOS. So if you want to put anything, you just say no before that. It is as good as not putting that command. So you say shutdown, you say no shutdown, it is opposite of shutdown, as in it's open, right? So negating any command is by using the word no before that command, right? So now if I do the same thing, do show IP interface brief, I can see that interface VLAN 1 has got an IP address now, and it is up now, right? So you can see that the status is up, but protocol is down. So status is up, protocol is down. So why is protocol down? Because it is not seeing any traffic on that port right now. Because right now, if you remember, that is the only device that is there. So it is not seeing any traffic. So what we'll do is we'll create an end device, right? We'll put one end device here, right? Don't worry about Cisco packet tracer for now. We will have another video. Maybe I will try doing the next video or the video after that, where we will talk about packet tracer, how packet tracer works, just general overview about packet tracer. But for now, just know that I'm just simulating a PC. So one PC, I'm just taking a wire from that PC and connecting it to one of the interface. So which interface did it go into? So if you can see, okay, see, you can see interface VLAN 1 has changed to state up. So line protocol of VLAN 1 has changed to up. Why? Because it started seeing traffic now. This PC came in, immediately it started sending broadcasts. So he started seeing traffic on that VLAN interface, and he immediately went to state up, right? And he would have, so if you go into this, do show IP interface brief, now you can see fast Ethernet also has gone up. So that means I've just connected to fast Ethernet 0/1, that means the first interface. If you see previously, fast Ethernet 0/1 also was protocol down, but now protocol has gone up because it's seeing traffic on that port. And also VLAN interface also has gone up because it's seeing traffic on that port. Brilliant, right? So now we'll go here, like just now what this PC is, it is, I mean, it's just a simulation. It makes it look like your Windows computer. So we'll go give an IP address 10.1.1.2, right? 255.255.255.0, right? We don't need default gateway because we're not going out of the network. We are in the same network. I will try to ping from here. So ping 10.1.1.1, right? Is that device pinging back to me? Interesting. Yeah. Right. So it is pinging back. So that means I can now access. Now this device can access the switch, no problem. And this 10.1.1, which is the management IP, that is also live now. Now, why did the first request timeout? That is because of a concept called ARP. We have learned ARP. The first request, it didn't know the MAC address of that switch, so it had to send that ARP request. So that is why the first request failed. But then subsequently 4 pings became successful. So now we know it is live. So what we'll do is try to telnet. So we'll say telnet 10.1.1.1, right? So you can see that we are telnetting from that PC to 10.1.1.1, which is nothing but the virtual interface of the switch. And immediately on my command prompt, I see this same login message that I saw there. Now this switch could be anywhere in the network. It could be on the 4th floor and your switch could be on the ground floor, right? But we're coming through telnet here, right? So it is asking the same thing. It's asking for a password. Which is this password? We put 2 passwords. One was console password, one was this line VTY password. So we'll try Cisco, which is the console password. It's not accepting. Now let me try the telnet password, or the VTY password, which was telnet. I put that, it worked. So it now accepted the VTY password. So line VTY password is what worked here. So that is how telnet. Now here let me try enable. It tells me no password set. That means it is letting me access the user privilege mode, but it is not letting me go to privilege access mode, right? Privilege exec mode. To go to privilege exec mode, I need to create something called the enable password. So one of our requirement was to set the enable password. Now what is enable password? Enable password is nothing but the password that enables. Now how did we go from user exec mode to privilege exec mode? By typing a command called enable, right? So what we are telling is we want somebody, if anybody wants to get into this privilege mode, you need to type enable. So whenever you type enable, they say it requires a password, right? So if it will not work without a password. So we'll go back to this. Now this is a simulation of getting console access. So I have access to this switch already. I need to type enable, that's in from global config mode, password, right? Enable password, enable, right? I'm just setting a password called enable. You can give anything there. So I say enable password enable. Now let me try this enable again. I type enable, I hit enter, it's asking for a password. What's the password? Enable. When I hit enter, it goes to the privilege exec mode. Now I have access to this device. I can do anything I want. I can go into conft, I can change the password, I can change host name. So let me change the host name. Switch floor 1 room 10, right? Can you see? I have changed the host name of the device. Now if I go here, you can see that the switch host name has been changed, and I changed that remotely through telnet session, right? So that's how you get telnet access. So we did the host name, we did logon banner, we did console password, we did telnet password, we did enable password, we did management IP, we did shutdown, we did negating command. Now next is the default gateway, right? So how do we get the default gateway? We go to global config mode again. we say IP default gateway, and we say the default gateway is 10.1.1.10, right? And I can hit enter. Now you might ask, why do we need a default gateway when the switch is a layer 2 device, right? Let's assume now in this case we were directly connected, but let's assume there were multiple devices, right? There were this device, wherever I initiated my telnet, it came from a different network than the network of 10.1.1.1, right? So telnet traffic came to this management IP from a different network. Now this device has to send traffic back to that network. Now if it doesn't know where to send it, it will not be able to connect with that device. So whatever traffic that this device is coming, whatever traffic is coming to this network, if it is coming from a network IP address, source IP address that is different from its management IP, it needs to send it back to it, which is going to be in a different network. And like we already know, if it's in a different network, it has to communicate with a default gateway. So this is how we set the default gateway for this device, right? So any traffic that's coming from a different network, it has to send the packet back or the reply to the default network, which will forward that packet to the final destination, right? So this is how we set the default gateway. Now finally we look at how to save this configuration. We have done so many configurations on this device already. Now how do we save that, right? There are two ways of saving. One is by typing this command called write, right? Of course you cannot do that here. You have to do it at the privilege exec mode. So I can type write, WRITE, and hit enter. It will say building configuration, and it saved this save the running configuration. So whatever changes that we have done so far stays in something called the running configuration, right? So what happens is when we shut down this, running configuration stays on the RAM, right? So when we restart the switch, we will lose all those configurations. So what we need to do is we need to write whatever is in our running configuration into something called the startup configuration, right? So when we do this command called write, what it does is whatever is in the running configuration, it copies and writes onto startup configuration, and startup configuration is a file that sits on the non-volatile or the NVRAM. So when a switch boots, it checks if there is a startup configuration in the NVRAM. It loads that onto the running configuration and it loads the switch. So all the configuration that we have done will be back when the switch restarts, right? That is what startup configuration is. Now by doing write, it does the reverse process. It takes everything from running configuration and it saves in startup configuration. Now though write is allowed, it is one of those old commands. The Cisco's recommended way of how to save configuration is by this command saying copy running configuration, right? So let's do this, copy, and let's do question mark. It says copy from where? From running configuration. So I can copy from flash to somewhere else, from FTP, from running to somewhere, startup to somewhere, FTP. So what we need to do is from running, again question mark, it's asking copy to where? We need to copy it to startup config. So running to startup. So when I do this, it says, okay, destination file name is startup config. I hit enter, it says yes, and it builds the configuration. Now you need to be very, very careful. If you say copy start to run, what it would effectively do, especially with a new switch, is whatever configuration we have done so far, it will replace that with a blank configuration. So basically we will lose all our work which we have done so far. So that's something you need to be very careful when you do, right? So this is how you save the configuration. Now if you restart the switch will come back to exactly the state we have right now, right? So this is how we do the basic configuration. I know for a lot of people this will be the first time they're actually seeing the command line interface of a device, so it could take some time. So you might have to watch this video a few times until you get used to different levels, like different modes, use exec mode, privilege exec mode, global config mode, then you have different line subcommands, then you go into host names and banners and shutdown, management IP. So it'll take some time. So watch it few times until you get used to it. But these are some of those basic commands that is is this is some of those basic command that you would need to know, and this is one of those commands. This also is a command that does the initial configuration of any Cisco device, and this is the beauty of Cisco device. You learn this for a switch, this is going to be exactly the same command for a router later, right? So just remember the commands. See where hostname is coming. Hostname is part of the global config. Log on banner, it is part of the global config. Console password, you need to go to line console and put the password there. Telnet password, it is again in line VTY 0 to 4. Enable password, again a global configuration command. Management IP, you need to go into the VLAN interface and give the IP address there. You should also remember to enable that interface, because by default that interface is shut down, right? So you need to do no shutdown to enable that interface. You need to go to default gateway. How do we set the default gateway? You do it from the global config saying IP default gateway, and you can give a gateway command. And finally, how do we save the configuration? You can do write, or you can do copy running config to startup config. I hope this video has been very informative, and I hope it helped you. So thank you so much for watching. Like I mentioned, please share these videos. Please subscribe to our channel. We have a Facebook page at Networking Consultant, and we have a YouTube page, so you can visit both our pages. Share this with as many people as you can, and thank you for all the loves. If you have any question, like I have always told you, please feel free to write into me at imran.rafai@nwking.org. I know I'm a little slow, but I will, especially now I'm trying to give more time to this project. I want to finish this series because I know a lot of people have been requesting me, and I know it is helping a lot of people. So I would love to do whatever is in my capacity to help all of you. So I will try and complete this series as soon as possible. You please try to share it with more people, so more and more people would get benefit from this video series. So thank you so much, keep watching, and love you all. Bye bye.